All right, guys, this is your last lesson for the 3-day set, your last 3-day set, hopefully. So we'll be back full time soon. With this lesson, we have already been talking about what drove us to the revolution. We are now talking about the battles themselves, some strategies that took place. So we're going to start talking about America actually winning some battles. But first, we got to talk about bad stuff. So at the end of 1776, we've only been fighting the war for half a year, only 6 months. The war is going really, really poorly for the Americans, and the British believe that the war is going to be over really soon. Because of this, British General Howe gives his men from Christmas to New Year's off. He says, go to New York City, go have a good time. And left New Jersey in the hands of the Hessians. The German mercenaries are guarding the city. Americans are in a really bad situation. Food was in such a short supply that we were eating our horses. We've even started eating our shoes and our belts because they're made of leather, so they have some nutritional value. Their clothing's destroyed, their feet is wrapped in whatever cloth they can find. Frost bites everywhere. Starvation is bad. And Washington knows that the only remedy for the low morale of America is a victory. We have to win. And that's why this painting here is so famous. This painting is the picture of Washington and his men crossing the Delaware River. And that was part of this plan. So in a desperate attack, he attacks the city of Trenton, New Jersey. His soldiers' enlistment, that means the time that they have signed up to be in the military, the time they signed a contract for, is ending at the end of the year. It's Christmas. He's got 5 days. And then he loses all of his soldiers. And right now, nobody would re-enlist. They're starving. They're dying. They've got frostbite. They got no place to stay. And there's no hope. We're getting killed. So his men are counting down 5 days and I get to go home. 5 days and I get to go home. So Washington's basically like, okay, one way or another, I'm losing my men. They're going to go home. So I might as well go fight a battle. Maybe if I win, I can keep some of them. And if I don't win, hey, I was going to lose them anyway. So I know it sounds harsh putting it that way, but that's kind of where he's at. On December 26th, 1776, the Battle of Trenton takes place. Washington drives his men to march all night long through rain. One man comes to him at one point saying the rain's making it so the guns won't fire. Washington tells them to use the bayonets. That's the knife on the end of the rifles. So he's like, we're not going to stop. In fact, the code word for the mission for this attack was victory or death. So there is no option here. The entire battle takes less than 2 hours because the Hessians are completely off guard. They had been up partying the night before. Somebody had even brought a warning to the Hessian commander, telling him about Washington's army. He was too busy playing cards to read it, and he put it in his pocket. He died with it in his pocket. But the battle lasts less than 2 hours. 900 Hessians are captured. Only 5 Americans were killed. Huge victory. And it's the victory that Washington and his men needed. Washington is now able to talk about half of his men into re-enlisting for 6 more weeks. And Washington agrees to pay them out of his own pocket. In 1777, Washington wins another battle by simply outsmarting the British. This is the Battle of Princeton. Washington realizes that the British know where he is. They have him cornered. British Commander Cornwallis has him cornered. And Washington has no hope to escape because the Delaware River is behind him and it has flooded. He can't get out. And so they basically say, we'll wait and go get him in the morning. During the night, Washington leaves his campfires burning and wraps rags around his wagon wheels. That is a hard sentence to say. Wraps rags around his wagon wheels to make sure that they don't make any sounds. and they ride off in the middle of the night. When the British wake up the next morning, Washington's gone. They come out of the woods, Washington and his men does, and there are some British soldiers right there. Battle starts. Very quickly, the American forces panic. They retreat. Washington charges through his men, yelling at them to turn around and attack. Washington is 10 yards from the British guns, and they open fire on him. Not a single bullet hits Washington. Washington yells out at his men to turn around and attack. Now his men at this point must think he's blessed by God because he wasn't hit. And these are the best shooters on the face of the earth, and nobody hit him. So Washington's men turn, and within a matter of an hour, the battle is over and the Americans have won again. This period of 10 days has now turned the entire tide of the war. The British have now lost 2 consecutive battles. So they send General John Burgoyne, which was known as Gentleman Johnny. I don't know why. But Burgoyne retakes Fort Ticonderoga. The American forces run, trying to get away from him. They cut down trees to slow down the horses that are in pursuit of them, and they get away. The British then devised a plan to end the war. They're going to get 3 major armies. They're going to get Gentleman Johnny's army to head south from Fort Ticonderoga in New York. They're going to get a second one to move east from Lake Ontario. And a third, General Howe, is going to move north from New York City. And all of them are going to meet at Albany, New York, where American forces were headquartered. But there's a problem with this battle plan. British General Howe, seeing that Gentleman Johnny had help, decides he's going to go after George Washington. And he goes, or not after Washington, but after Philadelphia, because Philadelphia was America's capital. It's where the Continental Congress is. And if he can take Philadelphia, the war is over, and he will get all the glory to himself. On September 11th, 1777, the Battle of Brandywine Creek takes place. Washington puts his soldiers in between Philadelphia and General Howe, suffers enormous losses, and Washington loses the Battle of Brandywine Creek. But he succeeds in stopping Howe from getting to Philadelphia. Meanwhile, Gentleman Johnny had reached Albany, but there's problems. First, Howe's not coming, and second, there was a storm coming from Lake Ontario, so that army's delayed. And as a result, Howe gets there all by himself. This is the Battle of Saratoga. And America wins very, very, very easily. General Horatio Gates is the leader of the American forces. He didn't win because he was good, because he's going to show how much he sucks later on, but he won because he was lucky here. This battle is a huge turning point because now other countries believe America might have a chance of winning. We've won 3 battles now. And after the Battle of Saratoga, France joins the war on the side of America. There is now hope that America will win. All right. Make sure you guys have your answers to your questions. Once again, if you have questions, shoot me an email. I'll gladly help you out. Make sure you are answering your essential question the right way. Make sure you have at least 3 sentences to answer your questions. Make sure you guys got your work done. Remember, you do have a take-home vocabulary quiz. Get that done. Make sure you get your answers right. Next week, we start going with everybody. Make sure you guys are ready. Make sure you're caught up on your information. I'll see you then.